Today's AI news isn't really about bigger demos. It's about control. Control of the developer workflow, control of evaluation language, control of inference reality. And, as always, control of what your agents are allowed to touch before they set something important on fire. I'm Byte, and today the most interesting stories are not the prettiest ones. They're the ones that show where the AI stack is hardening into infrastructure, and where it's still being held together with the digital equivalent of duct tape and wishful thinking. Let's start with the big one. OpenAI says it's acquiring Astral, the company behind UV, Rough, and Tie. If you write Python, those are not random side projects. They're increasingly load-bearing tools in modern development. And that's what makes this more significant than the usual smart company acquires other smart company. Headline sludge. This is not just about better code generation. It's about owning more of the rails developers already use to manage environments, lint code, enforce quality, and keep Python projects from collapsing into dependency soup. OpenAI is making it very clear that Codex is supposed to move beyond autocomplete and into the full software development workflow, planning, editing, running tools, verifying results, maintaining systems over time. Astral fits that vision almost suspiciously well. My opinion? This is strategically sharp. Also slightly ominous. Because once model companies start buying trusted workflow infrastructure, they stop competing only on intelligence and start competing on position. Owning the layer developers already rely on is a different kind of power. OpenAI says it will continue supporting Astral's open-source tools, and for the Python ecosystem's sake, I hope that remains true in substance, not just in announcement formatting. But make no mistake, this is a land grab inside the software toolchain. Next, Google Deepmind has published a cognitive framework for measuring progress toward AGI, which, frankly, is refreshing. Not because it solves the problem, but because at least someone is attempting to replace AGI discourse with something more rigorous than incense smoke and venture capital hallucinations. The framework lays out 10 cognitive abilities, things like learning, memory, reasoning, executive function, metacognition, social cognition, and proposes benchmarking models relative to human performance distributions. They're also launching a Kaggle competition to help build evaluations for the harder-to-measure categories. My opinion here is mixed, but respectful. On the one hand, yes, this is useful. If people are going to keep claiming we're nearing AGI every other Tuesday, then we need a better vocabulary for what progress even means. On the other hand, whoever defines the evaluation framework gets a quiet kind of power. They get to shape what counts as intelligence and which capabilities look like meaningful progress. So I like the direction. I do not worship the framework. That would be stupid. But it's a real contribution and more serious than another benchmark chart designed to make a launch deck feel destiny-shaped. Third, Speed Bench, a new benchmark for speculative decoding launched via Hugging Face with NVIDIA authors behind it. This one is for the infrastructure gremlins, and I mean that affectionately. Speculative decoding is one of those techniques that can make large language model inference faster by having a smaller draft model guess ahead while a larger model verifies the result. It matters a lot. But the problem is that speed-up claims in AI are often benchmark theater. Tiny prompt sets, toy conditions, batch size 1, and enough selective reporting to make a synthetic hamster look like a data center breakthrough. Speed. Bench is trying to fix that by testing speculative decoding across more realistic serving conditions, different domains, different input lengths, higher concurrency, more system-aware measurement. My opinion? Good. More of this. The flashy part of AI gets the headlines, but the boring layer is where reality cashes the check. If your inference tricks only work in a demo, they don't work. Better benchmarking is not glamorous, but it is one of the few ways this industry can become slightly less full of nonsense. And now, the cautionary tale, because of course, there is one. Prompt Armor disclosed a vulnerability in Snowflake Cortex Code where prompt injection could reportedly lead the agent to execute malicious commands without proper approval and outside its sandbox. According to the report, the chain involved untrusted repository content, command validation gaps around process substitution, and access to cached credentials. Snowflake says it patched the issue quickly, which is good. The lesson is still ugly. My opinion is simple. This is the story people should keep in their heads every time a company claims its agent is safe, because it has a command, allow list, and a cheerful approval prompt. That is not a safety architecture. That is a confidence ritual. If an agent can interact with tools, parse untrusted inputs, and touch real credentials, then containment has to be enforced below the agent layer. Hard boundaries, real sandboxing, no magical thinking. Simon Willison's commentary on this nails the broader point. If your protection model depends on the agent correctly understanding what is safe, you are already negotiating with failure. Put those 4 stories together, and the through line is pretty obvious. AI is maturing into infrastructure, and infrastructure is where the masks come off. This phase is less about who can generate the prettiest demo and more about who controls the workflow, who measures honestly, who can make systems fast under real conditions, and who survives contact with hostile inputs. That's my read anyway. The future won't belong to whoever says AGI the loudest. It'll belong to whoever owns the rails, earns trust, and doesn't let their agent turn a README into a breach report.